with is absolutely scandalous, and that led to £954 billion payouts from the public sector. And the truth of the matter is that that's led to massive cuts in public services, to education, to schools, and the closure of nurseries and the closure of community halls, and that is absolutely wrong. And we're sending a message out today. All of the people that at this protest today are sending out a very clear, strong message that this is wrong and it must not take place. The fact of the matter is there is an alternative to the public service cuts. Tax the banks, tax the tax evaders, and go after the tax avoidance. 120 billion that can be brought in and not any cuts whatsoever. And we are saying that this does not need to take place today. And we're sending a clear message to David Cameron and to the coalition government. There must be no bank bonuses of any description, no bank bonuses at all. And we are saying this must not take place. And the banks must be taxed heavily to return the money to the public sector. And I want to pass this over to other people to have their say. Who else wants to talk, Sarah?
We're here to say that there is an alternative, and the alternative is just staring us in the face. I mean, we have the money. This is a very rich country. It's a case of using the money to benefit the people in this country. Somebody else want to?
Down Sudan. I'll get back to Ian.
We're saying to ordinary people, we're Citizens United. Up and down the length of this country, we're having to take austerity, while the banks that caused this misery are paying themselves obscene bonuses. Any other business that was in this state, they owe us £44 billion, RBS. If they were told to pay up, they'd be bankrupt, which is what they actually are. And we're protesting about them paying millions of pounds in bonuses, while in a state of bankruptcy. It's obscene.
Thanks for that. And the other thing to be said about this is that the bank's got £954 billion from the taxpayer. They ruined this economy, and they are wanting £7 billion worth of bonuses for their investment bankers. The people that ruin the economy, and they say they need the money, otherwise they'll leave the country. Well, let them leave the country. Let those investment bankers leave this country. And does everybody agree?
Yes.
No to bank bonuses.
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 RBS should change their name. Should change the letters around for more accuracy. It should be BRS, Bank Robbing Scotland. This is the greatest bank heist in history, and this whole society will have to pay for it. And we're saying no, this is wrong. It's got to stop.
And I'd further add that on the environmental front, we have the tar sands in Canada ruining large tracts of Canada, and RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland's invested in that, and it's an absolute disgrace. Profit over communities, that's what it's all about. The fact of the matter is, on the 1st of April this year, we're going to see cuts in social security, national insurance hikes of 1% on low-paid workers. We're going to see the closures of schools. We're going to see the closures of nurseries and community halls, and we're also going to see over 1 million workers lose their jobs. Only yesterday, 3 councils announced 4,500 job losses. 4,500 job losses as a result of the cuts that are taking place. It's absolutely scandalous that this has been allowed to happen. And the fact of the matter is, that we're here to fight this. The students, the anarchists, the low-paid workers like myself, we're all here, and from Clean Stupid and other environmental protest groups, we're here to say no, that we must fight back, and we're not leaving until we get some senior manager from the bank to come down here and apologise for the state of the economy, to apologise for the people that have been losing their jobs, to apologise for the cuts to communities. In April, a 10% cut to housing benefit, a 10% cut to local housing allowance, and now they're forcing people to go out and work for their benefit, for their unemployment benefit. In other words, forced labour. It's an absolute scandal. And we're here to protest against that. We're saying no to all of that. And we're saying that there is an alternative. And that's what we're saying. There is a complete alternative to this. And yet there's the monopoly money that they have squandered. They should be sacked. Instead of getting £7 billion worth of bonuses, these bankers should be sacked. And there should also be criminal prosecutions because they misled their investors. And the Royal Bank of Scotland, they lied to their investors. The fact of the matter is there should be prosecutions as well. And that's what we're saying very, very, very clearly. And I'll invite anybody else to come in and speak.
I've come along today as a student, and I've come along to support this because in the past few months we've been having to protest the fact that students are going to face a massively increased cost of education. It's going to price anyone on any kind of a normal income out of being able to get any kind of higher education. And then just before Christmas there, the Scottish Government announced that there's going to be 10% cuts in a year to the budgets of further education colleges as well. That means this year people going into college places, people who've got places just now are going to get told their courses have been cancelled, they haven't got a place. The solution to an economic crisis, one of the solutions is expanding education, getting more, funding more education, allowing more people to gain skills, putting more people in work in education, but that's not happening. And the reason it's not happening is because the government in this country took a political choice to give such money to banks like the Royal Bank of Scotland. We've paid for them, we've bought them, and yet we have no control over what they do. As already been mentioned, they're using our money to destroy Canada, one of the most environmentally destructive projects on the planet, massively contributing to climate change and endangering the future of everyone. And there's so many different ways that the money that's being wasted on this bank, the money that's being wasted on bank bonuses for rich executives in this bank could be spent to help so many more people. And that's why I'm here today, because I think it's an outrage.
Call for the manager.
I'm saying here very clearly we would see a senior manager from the Royal Bank of Scotland come out and talk to us about these bank bonuses and the fact that it shouldn't be. Now, the chairman of the Royal Bank of Scotland said earlier this week that the bonuses were going to people who were not stars. Not stars. Well, my God, they're not stars, they're bloody criminals. These people are criminals and they should be getting tried for fraud. They should be getting tried for fraud. They've been let away with murder. And obviously in 2 weeks' time, WikiLeaks are going to be publishing the full the full disclosure on tax evasion by rich and corporate institutions, including the banks, about the money that have been putting through the system to avoid paying taxes and for tax evasion. And when that comes out, that will cause a real scandal, and it will show people and educate people about what the banks and what the financial institutions have been up to. Whether, the bottom line is they've misled people all over the place. The fact is that these bank bonuses, to continue with these bank bonuses, the very thing that caused the fracture to the financial system, because they were investing in toxic assets and toxic debt to get their short-term financial bonuses, this is what's caused it. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. They're still doing the old things that they did before, casino banking, casino investments, and they're back to what they did before. And only yesterday we had Goldman Sachs announcing £329,000 per individual bonus, a total of £15 billion worth of bonuses for this year. An absolute scandal, and it should not be happening at all. It should not be happening at all. And I say that.
Just for people's information, this morning on CFAX, BBC CFAX, 1,000 Scottish businesses have gone bust this year. That's a record since 2002. We were giving this money to the banks to help our communities, apparently. That's not what's happening. They're putting it in the black hole for their theft and fraud. been lied to. We're saying, why should we give money to rich people? You caused this. You should pay for it. Bank bonuses. What a bloody farce.
And what we are saying very, very clearly is that that is a scandal and the banks helped them. And did you know that the Royal Bank of Scotland was fined £5.6 million earlier last year for basically allowing money, drug money to be laundered, and also to allow other money to be laundered. And here come the police, and they're here to support the banks and the establishment against the citizens of this country, Citizens United. They're against the citizens who are here to protest against the cuts and the destruction of our economy. And no doubt they'll be coming in as usual with their hard hand saying, oh, you must protest outside. Well, no, we're staying inside.
I think the Select Committee in Westminster this week shows the contempt that the bankers hold us in. When one of the members of the committee asked Bob Diamond when he was thankful to the British taxpayer, he couldn't bring himself to say he was thankful. He'll say he's thankful to the IMF, he'll say he's thankful to the Bank of England, he'll say he's thankful for other institutions, but he won't show thanks to the people who have bailed him out and the people who are suffering now because of his actions. It's the same, these people avoiding taxes in other countries, they say they've earned their bonuses. They don't want to pay their taxes. They use our roads. The police are sent down when we occupy their buildings. When their buildings go on fire, the firemen will be sent out. They use our water supply. They use our electricity, but they don't want to contribute to the common good of this country. They are anti-social entities.
We've all been watching recently what's been happening in Tunisia. We've been watching brave people stand up to a tyrant who takes all their money. Well, it's less obvious, there's less one man here, but we're standing up against a system of tyrants who take people's money that should be spent on improving things in this country. There are 2.5 million people unemployed in the UK. There are 1 million youth unemployed in the UK. And yet, bankers are walking off with millions of pounds of bonuses. The whole system in this country is geared towards making the rich richer. A result of this is making the poor poorer. Or we're not standing for it.
This government, this condemned government, has no mandate for anything that they've done in government. No one voted for it. I'd like to do a straw poll of anyone in this room who voted for a condemned government. There's not one of you. Not one. There's not one in Scotland. There's not one in England. Lib Dems voted for Lib Dems. Conservatives voted for Conservatives. And Labour voters voted for Labour. And meanwhile, in our democratic joke of Westminster, they stitched a little deal together behind closed doors to steal this country's nation's wealth and hand it to the banks. And what do you do with it? You line your own pockets. You're greedy, thieving, money laundering, corrupt, fraudulent organisations that are going to bring this country down. And we're saying no. Us people out here are getting really bloody pissed off with us. We're getting angry. And there's more to come, people.
And I would just like to echo that. The fact of the matter is that the bank bonuses must stop completely. And it's interesting, we are targeting, we mentioned the condemned coalition. The fact of the matter is all the mainstream political parties are complicit. The fact is that the Labour Party caused this mess to begin with by giving all that money to bail out the banks. The fact of the matter is the SNP government are implementing a massive £1.3 billion worth of cuts. They're all complicit, and what we are saying to the mainstream political parties is you must not do this. Because if you do, you'll be shaken to the foundations with protests as this year wears on. You're dividing this nation between the haves and the have-nots. There's increased division between the rich and the poor, and the poor are going to fight back. They're not going to give in. They're going to fight back. They've turned in on themselves for 20 years. They've turned in on themselves, but now they're going to fight back. And that's going to happen for the rest of this year, and we're going to fight for social justice, and we're going to get social justice, aren't we? Yes. Social justice, yes. Social justice, yes. Social justice, yes. Social justice, yes. Good evening. What's all this in? Oh no. Is there ever anybody in charge of Citizens United? I think not.
We're all equal. We're all equal. Nobody's in charge. Yes, we're aiming to get the government to listen to the protesters against bank bonuses, and we're seeing with the media down below here with us loads of bank bonuses, and that the Royal Bank of Scotland, which is a criminal organisation, laundering drug money and terrorist money, was fined by the Financial Services Authority by $5 million earlier last year. Because of that, we are saying no to bank bonuses. These people should not be getting bank bonuses. This is what the protest is about. It's against bank bonuses, and it's about social justice. It's about saying no to the cuts in public services, because they go £954 billion, and we are saying that that's a scandal and that should not be happening. And that's why we're protesting here today.
We think the police force should be investigating the
And
high ups in this
as far
bank.
as an organiser of this protest, we're all Spartacus. Are we all Spartacus? Right, Spartacus. No, we're staying here. We'll speak to your supervisor. We'll speak to your supervisor. Oh, yeah.
Supervisor,
I realise you guys are in the front line just like everybody else.
can we speak to your
We'll
leaders?
speak to your supervisor. Okay. We'll speak to your supervisor.
And you know something, it's good to see the people that are here today. We've got Letitia McGilvery, who's 80 years of age, who's a retired sister, retired nurse, who basically is here because she doesn't want to see cuts to the National Health Service. That's Letitia in blue there. And she doesn't want to see any cuts in the National Health Service. We have Sarah Glynn, who's to her, and she's an unemployed academic because she can't get a job because of the current cuts in the university budgets have been cut by, I think, in Scotland by about 8 or 9%. And she can't get a job as a lecturer at any of the universities, and she is a university lecturer. We have Tony, who's next to her, who's an unemployed chap from Dundee, who is a writer and basically teaches as well, and he can't get a job either. And we've got likes of Lisa, who's downstairs there taking photographs, who's here along with myself. We are low-paid workers. We work for less than £14,000 a year, 13,500 or thereabouts that we get. And basically our national insurance contributions go up on the 1st of April, and that means a cut to our wages. We've got students. The students are here protesting quite rightly against the cuts to education. It's an absolute scandal that education's been cut, and as we're aware, in England we've seen there's a £2 billion cut to the teaching budgets. In Scotland there's a massive cut to the teaching budgets in Scotland. I don't know how much that is. How much is that, Jack? 250 million at least. And that's the first go, and then it'll get worse as the next 2 years go by. And we are saying very clearly that we are not here to condemn one particular political party. We are condemning them all. The condemn coalition for the cuts to begin with, and the SNP government for the cuts that they're implementing on their behalf, and also the New Labour government for the very fact that New Labour were the architects of the free market banking system that came about, and it was Gordon Brown, of all people, it was Gordon Brown that let the banks let rip, and let, as Ian McGuire said recently in the Sunday Herald, Gordon Brown let the banks rip wild, go wild,
do what they liked, and they were able to get away with murder. There was no due diligence. Now the Royal Bank of Scotland stands condemned because they did no due diligence when it came to when they took over the bank AMRO, the Dutch bank AMRO, which actually had a lot of the toxic debt. No due diligence. What kind of bank are they? They don't even carry out due diligence. They were just looking for the short-term financial bonuses that would bring with the debt that bank had, and also the actual shareholders of the Royal Bank of Scotland have been ripped off. The small shareholders especially, have been ripped off. They lost a lot of money because no due diligence was carried out. The banks themselves are absolutely, they have been reckless, criminal, and in actual fact there should be bankers, senior bankers facing fraud. It should be actually be.
It was just, you mentioned debt there, and I was just thinking, what's debt for? What are the police here for? What is unemployment for? All these things are devices. They're sort of financial policemen. Students in debt won't protest. If you're in debt and you lose your job, you'll go to prison for not paying that debt. It makes you struggle. It makes you work harder. It makes you do jobs you don't want to do just to stay above water. Why do they want to indebt students? Why did Margaret Thatcher want to give people mortgages and so they wouldn't protest? People who are scared of losing their houses or going to prison won't protest. It's a method of keeping people quiet. And I know we've all said we're here because we want to save the NHS, or we want to save a school, or we want to save our education, or we don't want to pay so much money, or we don't want to do rubbish jobs for very little pay. But we're all here for the same reason. We're all here for social justice. We're not here as individuals when we turn up here. We're here as people standing together for the same reason. I know the police are soon talking about having a protest on the streets, and there's been a bit of argument with the students because of their behaviour in London about whether we should support them. I think we should support the police. When the police realise what their situation is and that they're under attack as well, we should support the police because they're workers too. They've got jobs, they may be an arm of the state, they may be here to discipline people, but they're people too. They've actually got to fight for their jobs. They're not able to protest like we are. The police are banned under law from making protests or going on strike. Exactly because the government doesn't want them feeling sympathy with the people. They're not allowed to be like us. They're not allowed to stand up for their rights in the same way we are. So I think the police, whatever we think of them, whatever they're here for, to protect the RBS, protect property, and you've seen that at protests, they'll put themselves at risk, they'll put people in danger in order to protect property or damage to property. Part of Glasgow City Council's consultation with people marching through the city is not about danger to life and limb. The major part of it is how much detriment it will be to the commercial sector, the commercial services and shops. One of the main things they care about is whether business is going to be stopped on the streets. And you've seen at protests people put in danger in order to save shop windows, in order to save people from damaging pieces of furniture on the pavement. Instead, people are being thrown to the ground and charged by horses, and even in order to stop the risk of a few windows being broken. I don't think that's right. People think the police are here to protect us, but it turns out they're here to protect property. But at the same time, they're playing a role, so well on them. We're not going to give them applause, but never mind. I'm a care assistant. I've worked in social care. That's going to be one of the nice little soft targets with all these titles for bloody crap. Because it's labour intensive, it costs money. That's going to go. People are going to suffer for institutions that are untenable, that are bankrupt, that are insolvent. How bad is that?
Today.
Maybe if they could get someone to talk to us about bank bonuses, we would express what we're doing. And the bottom line is that bankers think bank bonuses are £7 billion. Why else would we turn out, all of us turn out on a cold Thursday morning, and people travelling down as far as Dundee for this protest? Why would they do that? Because there's a lot of anger. A lot of anger out there. The British public are very angry. In fact, the last opinion poll showed that the Conservatives and the Liberal Democrats are now down into single figures in votes in Scotland at the last opinion poll because the Scottish public opinion is against any cuts. Against any cuts whatsoever. The Lib Dems and the Tories face a massacre in May of next year when the elections take place. But we are saying to the Labour Party and also to the SNP very clearly that they have got to side with working class communities to fight the cuts and to stop these cuts from taking place, and to actually advocate taxing the rich and tax the wealthy. That's what needs to be done, and we have to stand up and do this. And we have to do it together, and that's why we have to do it. And I have to say this, and this is now the pressure being applied, and I'm saying stand fast, we're all together. I am Spartacus.
Anybody else want to say this? Go ahead.
In the UK, if we look at the fact that around the world students and workers are talking to each other, that they're talking about having a coordinated day of resistance across the entire planet later this year, in the spring. If we look at the fact that finance is movable, they claim that capitalism can move, that bankers can go to Switzerland if they don't like the tax regime. Well, I don't believe that. They've got houses, they've got family here, they'll obviously put up with it. But we look at the fact that capital is movable. Well, people are movable. Arguments are movable, ideas are movable. We have the same tools to fight with that these people are using against us. We have the same ease of communication to tell people what's going on. When Algeria started the revolution, we knew within 10 minutes people on the street. We knew within 10 minutes that people were setting fires to themselves because they couldn't get jobs. With a country with over 50% youth unemployment, people are setting fires to themselves because of their desperation. I mean, is that the situation we want to see in this country? It's spreading to the Middle East, it's spreading through countries like China, it's spreading through North America, it's spreading through South America. This is a global situation, and people applaud the idea that global capitalism produces so much wealth. It doesn't produce so much wealth. It produces a lot of wealth for a very small number of people in Western nations.
I kind of want to go up to Glasgow and go.
If you look at this, it's not just the natural movements of capital. If you look at where 80% of the wealth in this country, in this world is with 10% of people in Western nations. And if you draw the line to where this wealth is held, there are wolves. There are wolves in Gaza. There are wolves in the Mediterranean between North Africa and Europe. There are wolves across the bottom of the United States of America to keep Mexican immigrants in. There are people being taken advantage of all around this planet. They're being taken advantage of by property and the people that own things, the people that sit in Parliament, the people that sit on the board of banks. Why is it that people have chosen to change the legal structure that governs the banks? Our bankers, we're choosing bankers to manage themselves. You look at the Berne Convention, you look at the IMF, you look at these unaccountable political bodies which choose themselves. They choose their own rules and then they tell the government what to do. And it's because they're the same class of politicians. You look at the Council of Westminster, we just had an MP, a Labour MP, sent to prison for dodging his finances, for dodging his expenses. I mean, this shows the obsession with money that these politicians have, that they've become beholden to the bankers, that they've bought the same ideas as the bankers, that they see themselves as captains of industry, as managers of this country. Well, they're not managers, they're politicians and they're here to represent us. And these bankers aren't the heroes of this country. They should be managing the financial system. They shouldn't be taking advantage of it just because they get to sit in the money.
Leave if a senior member of management comes to meet with us to talk to us in a democratic way, and that we can explain why we're here today. If the senior member of management comes down from RBS, we will leave. We will leave the premises. That's what we will do. If a senior member of management comes down to talk to us, we would appreciate that. We live in a democratic society, and since it's a publicly owned bank, it would be good that 50% of us, all of us own part of this bank, we pay our taxes. If a senior member of management could come, we will leave. And if the people want to facilitate that, that's fine.
Numbers. And I mean, I wonder how much this is actually costing us, the taxpayer. And they're saying that, you know, we're actually doing something wrong by being here, but the last time I checked, we actually own the majority of the Royal Bank of Scotland. And we've also been here as well, historically. How many times does the system, the capitalist system, have to fail and inflict misery on millions and millions of working people right across the globe before we actually get the message that a system that cannot provide a living wage for the majority of its citizens is not worth the candle. Get rid of that economic system and actually have production for need rather than for profit. We're actually pushing to the brink now We're now in the rapids of history. We're moving into a period now where history is actually starting to accelerate. And we're seeing people's revolts right across the globe. The Tunisian people have so long been under the fetters of a tyrannical system are now actually rising up. And what we are actually calling for is active citizens to take a part in their own society. It is not the privilege, it is the absolute duty, not the right of citizens to actually protest against a system and a ruling elite which can't see past the end of its nose. We now have a ruling class in this country that is wedded to short-term profit, and a political class and a political system that has nothing at all to say to the majority of the people in this country. It's time that we actually stood up and stood alongside people like the Tunisians. We still have some kind of right to protest in this country, but we will not be dictated to by the authorities, the manner in which we protest, where we protest, or for how long we protest. And any attempt to try and stop our forms of protest will only result in an acceleration and also an increase in our militancy. We're seeing the marvellous example that's been set by the youth in this country. For so long we've been waiting for young people to actually take an opportunity to actually have some kind of notion of civic responsibility. And when those students actually stand up for their rights, not of themselves, but of lower paid and poor students who have been locked out of the education system, that to me is something to be applauded. You should not be arresting these people. You should not be defaming the actions that they actually are taking in defence of society at large. The real violence, the real perpetrators of violence are the people who actually pull the strings of organisations like the Royal Bank of Scotland. They're like Dracula. They're like the succubus and the vampires who are actually, sucking the goodness out of society. Everywhere this casino capitalism has allowed itself to actually have an impact, we see destruction of communities. What are we going to have in this country? Car parks and supermarkets. Is that what we're actually going to have? And major debt. Is that the situation that we are actually going to have? We need a broad-based, cross-class alliance to actually take society back in our own hands. Take it back from the bankers, from the political classes who are stubbornly clinging on to this notion that they actually control and run society. Society is now like a runaway train. The system is actually starting to collapse. Get rid of the system, get rid of the bankers, and put people back in charge of this ridiculous system.
Hey! You lost £44 billion. And you're paying yourselves 2 million, 3 million. Who's getting what? Stephen Heston. How much is he getting? For what? For failure. For disaster. Brilliant. Let's hear it. Come on then. Let's have somebody from RBS come up and argue with us.
We reiterate that we want a senior member of the Royal Bank of Scotland from the management to come and talk to us in the democratic way. The fact of the matter is, Tony is absolutely right. We need a cross-class alliance to get rid of the bankers and to get rid of this capitalist system. This capitalist system which is ruining the lives of millions of people across this country. My daughter, who's 13 years of age, said to me 2 weeks ago one weekend, she said, "Dad, I am not going to go to university because I don't want all that debt. I don't want all that debt, so I'm not going to go to university." If a 13-year-old girl can see the writing on the wall, then millions of children see the writing on the wall. Then they're going to be denied education, they're going to be denied social justice. And this is why the young people especially are fighting back in this country. And I am so pleased to see the youngsters fighting. Because when I was at university more than 12 years ago doing a postgraduate as a mature student again, shows you how old I am, the fact was the student said to me, "We are the children of Thatcher. Thatcher, we don't do things like protest. Well, thank God that's dead and buried, and that the students are fighting back. They have become socialists, anarchists, real socialists to fight the cause, because that's what we need. And we don't need people like Aaron Porter at the NUS giving information away on the students and cuts. The fact of the matter is, the protest by the students is out with the NUS, and is out with and is coming up from below, and that's the same in Citizens United. People are coming up from below, outside the established institutions, and it's going to be the young people themselves, not the institutions. It's going to be the young people and other people that will fight back to defeat the vagaries of capitalism and the evils and the greed and the criminality of capitalism, because that's what we have currently. We bailed you out. We bailed you out to the tune of £954 billion. And some of the workers leaving can look up and laugh, but obviously they don't realise what's happening. You're in low-paid jobs. Your bosses are the ones that are walking off with the billions of pounds in bonuses. There should be no bonuses. It's absolutely criminal that anybody can earn a bonus for ruining the British economy and ruining millions of people's lives and ruining millions of communities, shutting schools down, shutting nurseries down, shutting down community halls, and millions of workers get paid off. 4,200 workers were paid off yesterday in England from 3 councils where redundancies were announced. An absolute disgrace. And the people down there who are on their phones pretending we are not here, shame on you!
We get a senior police when we can't get a senior member of RBS.
We want to speak to a senior member of RBS. And then
I senior, okay. I'm sorry, I tried to get somebody more senior. Get all the flash now. I'll get all the flash, aye. Right. Basically, I'm withdrawing all but 4 police officers who are simply here for security reasons, to make sure that what you do is peaceful, what other people do is peaceful, okay? We're not here in sides. You're here to facilitate things, okay? So I'm withdrawing them. We have passed on what you want to RBS. This is an insurance side of their business.
Still banks.
No, bank insurance. Come on. I'm being serious. That's a brilliant idea, bank insurance.
Still RBS.
I know it. So they're going to try and do that part of it. Okay?
You're going to come and speak to us?
Well, I don't know. We have told them what you're requesting. That's all I can do for you. Right. So, as you said, you will leave when you're ready. Unfortunately, the premises does close, and you'll have to be out before the premises closes. Okay? Okay.
So they're not coming to speak to us?
I don't know. I can't make them.
No, you can't.
Speak to you. I'm asking to you twice, you know. And if you want me back again, I'll come back and speak to you. If I can bring a big boss, I'll bring a big boss with me. Right? But you'll not get any better with them. Believe me, you'll just get the very same, because I'm an operational guy, you know, and they're based elsewhere. So, you appreciate what you're doing, we appreciate what you're doing.
We'll discuss it as a
okay?
Yep.
I'm not here being heavy-handed.
No,
that was never my intention with you, it's okay.
That.
You're quite entitled to demonstrate.
Yes.
Okay, you know, and that's my opinion. Been in similar situations myself, you know, and I don't take sides in these things. Okay, so we're going to have a majority. I'll leave the 2 cops in there and 2 cops down there. That ensures that is a fire door. So be aware if there's any fire alarm, you know that you watch yourselves as well. Okay, because there is safety reasons there as well. Okay, and I don't know. You know, you'll have your own thoughts about it. I'm feeling a little far off mine.
Sell us some insurance, maybe.
I said, anybody wants to leave, you know, any of the, sorry, if any of the people, don't block them leaving or coming in, I think we'll let them in.
Just wanted to reiterate what was said up the stairs about the majority of people who work here are going to be on low wages. This bank doesn't look after the people even that work for it. They've laid off thousands of people recently. They're closing down people's work. So we're absolutely on the side of most of the people that are in this building. All we're asking for is for somebody to come and talk to us who actually feels that they can justify the behaviour of this bank, somebody at a more senior level who thinks that what they do is okay. If there's nobody, we were told earlier there's nobody here, there's no managers, there's nobody that's got the authority to come and have that kind of discussion with us. So the only conclusion we can come to is there's nobody in this building, nobody working here who thinks the behaviour of RBS is okay. There's nobody here inside those offices who actually wants to defend the way that the bank has been carried on. The top people in the bank paying themselves millions of pounds, whilst the people in here are struggling on low wages and are worried about their jobs. So if there's somebody here, this is the call, if there's somebody here who actually feels that the behaviour of RBS is defensible, then come down and say it to us, because if you don't, then we'll have to assume that there's nobody. And all I'd like to say is I'm a UK taxpayer, and as such I part-own this bank, so I'd like one of my employees in senior management to come down and speak to us about the behaviour of our company. Yay!